So I'm Eirik. I've had a great week here at the Atlassian Summit and at AtlasCamp, speaking to customers and solution partners and people from Atlassian. I've been trying to save a little bit of voice because I've been fighting a cold as well, and I think you will be the judges of whether that was successful. So I think I want to start by telling you a little story about how I met my first real human being customer. So 20 years ago, I moved to Trondheim to start my new life as a computer science student at the university in Trondheim. And I quickly understood that while computer science is fun, you also need to meet friends. So I joined the student newspaper in Trondheim as a machinist, the guy who maintained the computer network and the Macs for the journalists and the editors. At that time, the journalists were tagging their articles in text format with something called express tags. And we had a lot of problems with journalists who were mistyping, miscoding their articles. There was a lot of wrong formatting, and we spent a lot of time reviewing and fixing the layout of the newspaper. And since we were a group of computer science students, we thought, hey, we know this software business, and how hard can it be to make something that is better than the situation we were in? And from our studies, we had learned everything we needed to know about software development. We knew that there was something called the waterfall model, which was really the way to do things. And we knew that we had to gather all the requirements before we could start implementing. And before we could do that, we had to design our system properly. So we started gathering requirements, talking to the journalists, talking to the editors. And 2 years later, we were still talking and gathering requirements. And one guy on our team, he kind of got sick of this, and he said, why don't we just make something that works? And one summer later, we had our editorial system up and running, the first version. It's a what you see is what you get editor. It had features for the journalists to type their articles, to collect information, and for the editors to kind of have a workflow and an overview of the status of the next release of the newspaper. So until then, I had only kind of made software that was delivered for review with a professor, and then forgotten for the future. So this was my first meeting with an actual customer that had actual needs, and were using my software. So 1 week after launching, we get this email from Gøril. She was a journalist, and the subject was in all uppercase, saying, "Where are my 10,000 characters?" And then a question mark, and then a lot of exclamation marks. And you kind of know when your customer gets in touch with you and there are so many exclamation marks, it's not a good thing that's coming. So Gøril, she had been interviewing her favorite band called Big Bang. This was going to be a long feature interview in the next issue. She had been writing, of course, the interview itself. She had taken notes. She had been doing research online, copy-pasted text into her article. Since we didn't really have versioning at the time, she had been keeping several versions of her article within the text editor. And we were at the time using MySQL to store this data in a text column. And our understanding was that text could kind of fit text. Turned out that the MySQL text column can only store 64K of text. And Gøril, she broke that limit, and her article looked like this. and she was not very happy. So I think the lesson learned for this from me, it was a really strong learning experience, that customers do not do what you expect them to do. Often they will do the total opposite of what you expect them to do. And you need to be prepared for that situation. You need to be prepared for the unexpected. So fast forward a few years, I was coming back to Norway after I'd been in the US, in Silicon Valley, doing or jumping ship from a startup, coming back to Norway, and joining Kantega as their chief scientist. And this is a title that it's sufficiently fuzzy, and that I could fill it with whatever I wanted to. And what I did was look at the company, at our consultants, at our teams, and trying to identify obstacles to productivity within our organization, and then eliminate those obstacles that I could. So I didn't really produce much myself. I just kind of tried to increase the productivity for teams within the organization. And we were quite big Atlassian users at the time. And one thing I noticed was that people were spending time typing their username and passwords into Jira, into Confluence, and the other tools we were using. And that's not something I consider creative or adding value. So I thought, could we do something about this? And the idea was that I had been working for years on security. Would it be possible to make a plugin for Jira that would just sign? I mean, people were signed on to their computer. Why should they sign in an extra time when they were already signed into their computers? So I wanted to replace this with a single sign-on solution for our Windows environment. So I went to Atlassian's developer documentation, and I found this Hello World tutorial. And after a couple of weeks, I had something ready to show to our sysadmin. And this is Lars. He is our Atlassian sysadmin. And I showed this to him, and he said, wow, do you know how many people around the world needs this? Let's make this a product. Let's commercialize it, put it on the marketplace, and we will be rich. And I'm a bit more of the skeptical developer type. So I kind of said, are people willing to pay for such a small feature? Turns out that I was wrong, and Lars was right. So we've had great success with our add-ons, our single sign-on add-ons for the Atlassian stack. And we launched 3 years ago. So when we launched, we didn't really have an overnight success. It took a while for the sales to start coming in. So we were pretty much constrained by our budgeting. Like, we didn't have a lot of money that we could spend on this. And that also means for a consulting company, we didn't have time. We had to work on other consulting engagements for clients. So it was important for us that all the time that we spent on this project, on this product, was put into improving the product. Because I think a lot of companies, when they start up, they are eager to kind of broaden their feature list. They want more bullet points in their list of features. And that's natural because it gives you more to sell to the customer. But if you just keep adding features without being able to support your existing set of features, then I think you're really in a situation where you will drown in support, and you won't have time to improve the product. You're really on a sinking ship, so to speak. Yeah. So we use a technology called Kerberos, and this talk is not about Kerberos, but I think I need to explain a little bit about the technical difficulties that we face when doing support for customers around the world. We have a lot of customers in banking, insurance, really large organizations, and they have very efficient big firewalls. So it can be hard to help them sometimes. So to set up a single sign-on with Kerberos, you need to create an account in Active Directory. You need to run a command you see on the top here, which has a lot of parameters. And if you think that looks cryptic, it's because it is cryptic. And yeah, DNS is also an issue. You have to match the DNS with your naming. And I like to say that with Kerberos, there is one way to get it right, and there's probably hundreds of ways to get things wrong. So adding to this, there is really dependencies between different types of configuration. And if you do one thing wrong, it doesn't work. So that's kind of our challenge. And the first thing that we did to kind of solve or improve this situation was to build tools into our product that would enable the customer to identify their own problems without having to scan log files or, yeah. So we made diagnostic test pages that would probe your environment, that would perform test logins with your browsers, and display any kind of misconfigurations to the customer. It also, when we identify a problem in these kind of tools, we can actually suggest very often a solution. So maybe there is not one solution, but there are 2 or 3 alternative solutions that could be the right one, and we can list those, and the customer can very often fix their own issues without having to contact us for customer support. And finally, these test tools, they provide a great context for our support team. So in the event that the customer needs to contact us, we can ask them to run these test pages, and we have all the information that we need, all the context that would otherwise be very hard to get from deep behind the firewall of the world's largest banks. Yeah, here's another test page where we actually connect to Active Directory, and we compare the configuration in Active Directory with the configuration in our key tab file, our secret keys. And this helps us a lot when doing support. It's really been useful. However, we saw that this was useful, but it was useful for fixing problems. And we were kind of leading customers down the wrong path because they would just get something wrong usually, and then we had the tools helping them to get back on track. So what we rather wanted to do was kind of leading customers in the right direction from the beginning, so that they wouldn't have the problem and wouldn't need our tooling to solve it, and wouldn't need to contact us. And this turned out to be a really challenging exercise. We thought about it for a long time and tried various ways of solving this, and the usability issues of that was just too hard. So 1 year ago, we were at AtlasCamp, and a little bit by chance, we were going to have a one-to-one meeting with the Jira team, I think, and they were occupied or they were busy, and we saw that there was a designer called Alex from Atlassian, who was in a really large room, a room like this, sitting there alone, and he had time, so maybe we should ask him if he has some feedback on how we can solve this problem. So I remember we sat down with Alex, kind of stumbling, trying to explain this very technical, hard, deeply technical problem, and he was very patient. He was like, we didn't really think that he would understand this, but we tried, and he was very patient, and he was kind of nodding, and after 5 minutes, he said, "Okay, guys, I think I know what you guys need, and it sounds like you need the focused task pattern." And he explained to us what this is. It's a design pattern that you use when the customer needs to solve a very specific task, and the task is sufficiently complex that you need to do it in a distraction-free environment. And it's also useful when you have to split this over several screens in a linear fashion, where you use the information you learn from the customer on the first page to customize the experience on the second page. So the result of that was our setup wizard, which is a wizard for setting up our system. So in many cases, we are actually able to connect to your environment, to your Active Directory and your DNS, and we can probe and find and suggest a working configuration. So in most cases, you can simply go to the task list. And if not, you can run the wizard. It lets you connect to Active Directory, find the name of the service and the domain in your Windows domain, and you select the user account and the encryption type appropriate for your environment. And in the end, you get this command produced, and you don't have to type the command yourself. You just copy it over to your server, you run it, you upload the file. We run the test for you, and everything is green and it works. And this really, I would say, it cut our support requests in half overnight. And we had a lot of time that we could now spend on improving the product, working on marketing or whatever, instead of having to chase the next support request. So, of course, for our support team, this was really great. But we were also excited to get feedback from our customers. And this is a quote from one of our early customers after the setup wizard. And I think when the customer gets this feeling that this is a product that just works, I'm not feeling stupid because I can't make it work. It just works out of the box. That builds loyalty with the customer. So I would say after the first year, we started growing internationally. We got more customers in the US, in Australia, around the globe. And we started having this problem with time zones and doing support across time zones. So we had our official support time in Norwegian office hours, but our customers did not work in Norwegian office hours. So you end up with getting an email on Monday afternoon after our support time has ended. And we are not able to answer until maybe Tuesday. We need some more information from the customer. And then the customer cannot answer on Wednesday, so maybe on Thursday we get something back, but it's not exactly what we needed. And this turns into kind of a email ping pong game that can last for weeks. And we kind of thought, screw email, this doesn't work. We have to make something that is better than this. It's not a good experience for us. It's wasting our time, and it's wasting the time of the customer. So what we did was to create a tiny little add-on for Jira. It's called Quick Response. It's a web chat solution for specifically tailor-made for customer support. So when we feel that email is not working, we go to this quick response solution. We enter a name of a chat room, and we can start a chat. And that gives us a URL that we can share with the customer on email, and we can say, please, can we continue this conversation live? That would be a lot quicker. So here I say hello to Jane, and then on the customer side, Jane gets an email, and I'm saying that I'm available for a web chat right now. So she just clicks this link, and there's really not logging in, but she can say her name, and she's joining the room. And we have a live conversation where I can answer multiple questions and get live feedback. I can even send her screenshots that I want her to take, and she can take screenshots and just paste them right into this web chat. And this has been a really, really useful solution for us. When we are done, we just close the room, and we get an email transcript either to our archive, or we can send this email also to the customer if there is context that the customer needs for later use. I think this turned our typical email conversation from being a week-long project into being something that we could solve within minutes. So maybe 20 minutes or something, and we could have the problem solved. It kind of gave us superpowers as a customer support team. Really transformed the way we do support. And also, our feedback from our customers was really great. It's fun when people want to name their next child after you, boy or girl. I always love it when customers have kind of the energy to be funny when they respond to us. So, okay. I think developers never really intend to make bugs. That's not what we do. We prefer making features. But I think it's unavoidable that bugs will occur. And that happens to us as well. So that's not really, when the customer, we like to find our own bugs, but when the customer finds our bugs, it's really an important thing to be responsive and to take responsibility for the situation and working closely with the customer to find a solution. So we needed to find a way to give the customer a preview version of the fix, because maybe we thought we had fixed it, but the customer has to try it out in their environment, in their test environment, to kind of verify that we hit the right nail. So we made another little add-on that allows us to share files with the customer. So we just we build a preview version, a snapshot version of our add-on. We upload it to this file sharing add-on, and that gives us a URL that we can share with the customer, and the customer can download it. And the nice thing is that we actually get notified via email when the customer clicks download. So we know at what point they are starting to evaluate our fix, and we can kind of schedule our support team to be ready. We can even, half an hour later, we can send them an email and say, how's the fix going? So we can communicate with them at the right time. That's working really great for us. So I think that I've been showing you tools that we have made. And tools are really great when you're solving specific problems. And I'm a developer, so I like solving problems with tools, but I also think there are some kind of problems that you can't really solve them with tools alone. You have to consider how your organization is set up to help the customers. So one thing that we have learned is that customers, in general, the expectation for response time for customer support is really, really low. So people don't expect to get immediate answers to customer support requests. And if you manage to do that, to respond immediately or very quickly, you will give the customer really a great experience. They will be pleasantly surprised. So the most common feedback that we get when we answer a question from our customer support channels, it's that we are quick. So people are not expecting us to be that quick. When we get a customer support, we look at it as an incident. We drop everything else we're doing, we respond, and we get this kind of feedback from our customers. So it's really a great way to build a relationship with the customers. And this is the type of feedback that brings us. So another thing that we've been learning is that very often the customer will have a very specific instance of a question, and maybe you can answer like yes or no, or you can answer, you need to set this parameter to this to solve this. And that's great. That will help the customer move on with the problem. But the thing is that very often this problem is kind of, it belongs in a larger class of problems. And it's often the case that at a later time, the customer will have a similar problem, which is not exactly the same, but it's kind of a variant of the same issue. And they will come back and ask you for a specific solution again. So to deal with that, what we have learned to do is to kind of give the customer more information about the context, trying to educate them, to explain how single sign-on in their environment works, kind of giving them more information than they strictly require. And that gives them the ability to troubleshoot on their own. So we get good feedback from that when we do that. It takes a while to sit down and explain this to customers, but it's really useful when they are educated and able to solve their own problems in the future without having to deal with us. And that's the best for both parties. So a lot of or I would say the majority of our sales comes through Atlassian solution partners. We are based up in Norway. We are not close to our customers. We're not in the markets. And so our solution partners in Europe and in the US are much closer to the customer. So they are in a better situation to sell our add-on. And we believe that for solution partners, they are kind of, they risk ending up in a situation where they sell our solution to their clients, to their customers, but they don't really know all the details about how our add-on works. So they really rely on us to provide good customer support to their customers. And if we don't do that, they will end up looking stupid, or it will be a customer relationship problem for the solution partners. So while we, of course, try to give the best support that we can to any customer, I think it's even more important for us to have a great relationship with our solution partners. I actually had a conference call yesterday with one of our German solution partners, solving a problem for a global customer of theirs, and they had been having this trouble for 3 weeks, and it had been kind of an escalating situation, and Microsoft were involved, and we did a conference call from my hotel room, and I was able to help them fix the problem within a few minutes. And of course, that makes a happy solution partner, and they will continue selling our add-on. And that's also the feedback we get from our network of solution partners, that they sell our add-on not just based on features and the value that our product provides, but also because of the way that we do our support. Yeah. Also, when delivering bug fixes to the customer, I think it's very important that you are able to release a quick fix of a problem at any time. So some software organizations organize their source code in a way that makes this difficult. So they don't have a branch in their source code that is always releasable. They have projects where kind of the quality of the software deviates for a while, and then there is bug fixing, and you get back to something that's releasable. So they can only release at certain points in time. When we get a report for a bug in our software, we like to fix it within the day, and preferably deliver a new version to the marketplace with that fix. Because that way we can communicate back to the customer that, hey, there is a new release out. Please upgrade, and the problem will be fixed. And that's working out really well for us, because the customer doesn't want to wait for us to fix things. They are in a, maybe they are struggling with upgrading their Atlassian stack, and they have a project, they want to move on, and we don't want to be the one holding them back. Yeah. So one piece of advice that I can give to any software organization, I guess, it's very easy to just keep adding features. But if you add features that you cannot support, it's really a problem. So last year at AtlasCamp in Barcelona, we were approached by several customers and also solution partners asking us to extend our add-on with SAML, which is an alternative authentication method, a single sign-on solution. And our response at that time was that it's an interesting technology, but we haven't found a way to implement that in a way that we feel comfortable supporting. So SAML is a very open standard. It's kind of ambiguous. It's implemented by a lot of different parties, and having something that's supportable across all of these different implementations. It's easy to make something that works for one customer, but we want to make something that works for 1,000 customers around the world. And to do that, we can't just implement it. We have to have customer support as part of the whole customer experience. So at that point, 1 year ago, we just had to say, sorry, we don't have SAML, and we are not going to make it until we know how to do it well with regards to customer support. So it's very fun for us to be able to announce at the summit this week that we now actually have SAML in our add-on as a new feature. And it's been a lot of work, but I think that we have been able to make something that we are able to support, and we see that from the amount of support that we have gotten so far. It's really been a good experience. Yeah. So to finish this off, I think software, it's never a one-man show. It shouldn't be a one-man show. You can have these brilliant developers who crank out code. It's really a team effort. And customer support should be one of the most important parts of that team effort. We get a lot of information from our customers about their problems, about the challenges that they are facing by doing support. And a lot of companies look at support as simply a cost center. We think of it as a really great feedback for our product, and we work constantly to try to bring that feedback into our development. So we do monthly reviews of all our support cases, and we organize them by root cause. And we look at each root cause and try to see, is there anything we can do with our product or with our documentation or our support process that will enable us to eliminate this kind of problem in the future. So I think bringing support and development together, it's a really successful way of doing things. Of course, we are a small organization, so for us it's maybe easier than a larger organization, but I think even if we were to grow, I think this is something I would try to continue, this tight integration between customer support and product development. And in the end, it's a very rewarding and motivating to have happy customers. Nobody likes cranky customers, but when customers bring you feedback like this this is from a really large financial institution. He had been working with other vendors and he was very unhappy with their support. And he turned to us and we helped him restore faith in humanity, which is a really nice thing to have on record. And with that, I think I'm done and I'm ready for questions.